Welcome back to the show.
Hi.
Alex, not you. I'm not talking to you.
Oh, okay. Sorry. You're looking right at me.
Well, that's because we're recording a podcast together
Okay.
and we're speaking to one another
Mm-hmm.
and we're in the same room.
Mm-hmm.
But I am actually talking to the audience, the people who are listening in their cars or on their runs or walks, or if they're on horseback, perhaps. Those people. Not you. And definitely not Ivy. This is episode 70, which is crazy that we've recorded 70 episodes.
Unreal.
So I don't know if we've discussed this, but when we started this podcast, Alex was super not interested in doing it.
I was not at all.
Just thought it was going to be a gigantic waste of time.
We didn't even buy podcast equipment because I was like, no, we need to borrow it and I'll see if I like it.
I'm just going to try this on, which is like, that's a good way to do things.
Yeah.
So we don't waste money.
And I hated it and you still bought our own stuff.
And look at us now.
I know. I do enjoy podcasts.
Yeah. Here's why I like podcasts. They're very different than Instagram because what you can do, like Instagram, you post things and you have opinions and you put it out, but people can like comment and they sometimes comment mean stuff. But a podcast, like you just put it out and if people don't like it, they're not going to they have to go way out of their way to email and be like, hey, by the way, guys, I really didn't like this podcast. And I'm like,
I also
delete.
can't stand having debates on Instagram.
Yeah.
Because people can just say something and like they can just end it, be like, oh, well, we're arguing about the same thing. And it's like, at that point, I'm like, do I have to go back and retype everything I just said?
Yeah.
You know, at least when you're talking, it's like more free flowing. You can raise your voice. You can do these things to get the point across in a different way.
Yeah.
But over Instagram, you're just kind of like, whatever.
There's no way. There's Instagram. There's like lowercase, which I guess is like just speaking normally. And then there's like uppercase. And there's no in between. Like, how do you do the, like, my emotions are elevated here. I'm here. Like, sometimes I guess you write in that way.
Like, my opinion is no longer just an opinion. It's a very strong opinion.
Yeah, but
very
not
difficult to get that across.
Not strong enough to go all caps and yell at people online.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really tough.
And, you know, there's that new, I don't know if it's new, but you can restrict people.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You no longer block people. I mean, you can. But you can restrict them so they can comment on your stuff.
But nobody sees it.
But they don't know that no one sees it.
Yeah, we've restricted a few people on our account. And because like when you go into the comment section, you see like so-and-so's, the person who you restricted, their name, and then like they're kind of grayed out and says like restricted comment. And you can actually look at it and then you can go back and like restrict it again. And it's so great because they're just out there like yelling into space. They think that they're getting
I wonder how many accounts you've been restricted on.
Me?
Yeah.
Probably a few. Yeah. But I don't know. I don't lose sleep over that.
But what you don't know doesn't hurt you.
Yeah. Except when like no one likes your comment or like responds back and you're like, hello? Is anyone here?
Is anyone out there?
I guess like I would feel that just because I have like a number of followers. But if it's in an account that has 168 followers, they probably aren't used to getting interacted with routinely.
Yeah.
But
for the record, we don't actually have that many accounts restricted.
No, just like 2.
There's like a couple who just like every time it's like I don't know what it is, but it's like they have to be like, how can I misinterpret this post?
How can I call you out for like...
They read the post and they say, how can I misinterpret? Actually, they read the first paragraph and then they find something that they find some qualifier that you didn't speak about and they post it.
I know. It's like, what ounce of context did they leave out? And
what about a person with diabetes?
Like, look, this is not written for a person with type 1 diabetes. Please. So we, to change topics, just got back from Murnum, Alberta, which is up north, like north of Edmonton, where Alex's family has a ranch, which I told a few people that in like check-ins. What are you doing this weekend? Oh, we're going to Alex's family's ranch. And they said, oh, well, that's Alex doesn't really strike me as a rancher. And I was like, well, it's because she's not. Well, it's always, we haven't been in a few years. It's been since 2019. I think we went the last time for cattle branding and didn't disappoint.
Yeah. So my mom has 2 sisters. One of them is an artist who lives very close to us, and then one of them married a cowboy.
So it goes an artist, a lawyer, and a large animal vet walk into a bar.
Yeah.
Sounds like the start of a
So
joke.
yeah, my aunt who married the cowboy also is a large animal vet. So that works well for them. So she works with a lot of like farm ranch animals like cows and horses and that sort of thing. And so they have a ranch. It's Edmonton and then about an hour and a bit east of Edmonton.
Oh, it's east.
Got it. You turn at Edmonton.
I don't know.
But yeah, it's farther north than Calgary. And she's been up there for ages. And so then she has 2 kids, my cousins, who are just a bit younger than me, and they're like full blown like cowboys, cowgirl.
Yeah.
So they like my cousin, the boy, the older one, he runs the ranch with my aunt and uncle and his wife. And then my cousin, the girl, she doesn't live on the ranch, but she like trains horses.
She does like barrel racing and
yeah. And then they sell horses and stuff, buy and sell horses. It's a pretty cool life. Very different from ours. Like, so I absolutely love going to visit them. Mostly for the barn kitties.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it actually going to visit them or is it getting to play with kittens?
But I do like seeing how other, like, especially my family members, but like how different life can be. I mean, you get so stuck in what your life is and your daily day-to-day.
Yeah.
And we talk to a lot of people on a daily basis and we learn about their life, but a lot of the times it's very similar to us.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to like experience firsthand, like, well, what's your day look like?
Yeah. It's like, well, I'm going to get up and then we're going to feed the animals, horses first, then cows. Then we're going to go mend fences and see what animals have managed to injure themselves overnight. Yeah. That kind of thing.
I did ask because you go out there and the first night there was like a wiener cookout.
I believe it's called a wiener roast.
A wiener roast. So we go over to my cousin's place and I was talking to his wife and she was asking about how Tactic was going. And I said, well, how are things here? Like her family owns a ranch down south near Brooks. So the south of Calgary in Alberta. And she moved up to be with my cousin. And I was asking her about her job. And I guess she used to work for another company.
Like an agricultural sales company.
And she would consult like on seeding.
Yeah, she was like a crop consultant.
Yeah, and so I asked, what about your job do you not like? As a kind of a conversation starter, because I have noticed, like, as much as I absolutely love my job, and I've liked aspects of my previous jobs, there's always something that's like you don't like. And I've come to the conclusion that with every job, you just have to like 90% of it, 80% of it. And you kind of just have to accept that 10 or 20% of it is going to be like, okay, I just got to deal with this BS.
Yeah.
And focus on the good. So my question to her was, what about this lifestyle, your work, do you not like? And she said, well, when I used to work as a consultant, I didn't like, who I was working with, and I had issues with not having as much autonomy as I used to like and that sort of thing. But she goes, well, since I've quit that job and I'm working full time here at the ranch, like, there's nothing. She's like, we get up, we feed the horses, and it's not like it's not work. I mean, these guys work really hard.
Yeah.
But I don't know, to think like, wow, you could live a life where like you just like every part of it. That's like pretty awesome.
Literally get up and tend to your land and your animals, and that's it. It's like, that sounds like a pretty good day to me.
Yeah. But then, excuse me, you think about what it's like in the winter, and you're like, oh, that's got to be tough.
-40.
And it gets cold up there.
It gets colder than it does in Calgary by a significant amount. Yeah. So brutal. And then so what I thought was interesting, not that we like knew anyone at the Weenie roast. Weenie roast?
Yeah.
I don't know. Wiener roast. But we got introduced to this cowboy. Um, what was his name? Do you remember? Tarek. And like not a like super unusual name, and I didn't really like pay much mind to it. And we were, I think off talking to your aunt or something, and she was like, she asked if we had met him, and we said yes. And she said, well, do you know that he's from Dubai? And I was like, no. And so apparently, I just thought this was really cool. So he's from Dubai. His whole family lives in Dubai. And I guess the story is,
so we feared for our life for a moment there.
because of human rights issues.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
But he wasn't that type of Dubaian.
Dubin? Saudi Arabian?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, human. I think Dubai sort of exists in a little. No, it's still illegal there.
It is illegal.
It's very illegal to be gay in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's not get in. Let's save that for the next podcast.
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk about human rights next time. Yeah, so she was telling us about him, and so apparently the story is he saw some like Western movie when he was younger. I don't remember which one it was. I wish I had remembered.
We also talked to him too.
I know. That's why I'm telling the story. So we heard this from your aunt, and then we talked to him. But he watched a Western, some sort of John Wayne or similar movie when he was younger, and just really became enamored with the Western lifestyle. And if you're not aware, Calgary and Alberta as a whole is a big ranching, like cattle ranching kind of area, sort of like Texas, but up north. And so I guess he planned a vacation to go to the Calgary Stampede. He picked a big rodeo to go to. I think it was either like Calgary Stampede or maybe one in like Houston or Colorado or something. So he came to Stampede, loved it, just like loved everything about it. And I guess 10 years ago, packed his whole life up, which is just him, like moved to Calgary with nothing, no place to live, no friends, literally just like, here I am, I'm in Calgary, like made a call to a couple of like ag clubs and started doing cowboy stuff. I mean, you look at this guy, like he's got the whole, like he just looks like he belongs on a ranch. He's got the whole get up, has a horse, ropes. From Dubai. He said
I arrived. The first thing I did was I bought a truck.
Yeah.
And I went to like Lamley's and got like what I needed to look like a cowboy.
I would love to be a fly on the wall. You just like show up and you like dress me like a cowboy.
Pretty
boots,
much.
hat,
I'm pretty sure he did that.
Shirt, jeans, belt, all of it. But he said it's crazy because he didn't even have he was like, I used to be the guy that if there was a dog walking down the street, I would cross the street to get away from the dog. Like that's how much animal phobia this guy lived with. And now he rides around on a horse. He has 5 horses. I just thought it's like crazy to hear that story. Like someone would just up and move their whole life
to be a cowboy. I mean, I watch Yellowstone and I'm like, I want to be a cowboy. But then I just go back to my usual life.
Yeah.
The next day.
Yeah.
I mean, for a moment, it's like when you watch TV, you think, wow, I could do that. But no one actually does it.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously some people do.
Yeah.
I always used to think it was pretty wild when people would switch careers later in life. Like when there was an older adult in law school. Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, I've known a few people who have done that in their like 40s and 50s, just completely flipped careers.
That takes a lot of. I mean, we did it, but it just didn't. There wasn't as much like.
You don't typically have like a family that you have to worry about, or
you need furthering like a new degree.
Yeah,
like going to law school as an adult. That would be like me being like, I want to be a dentist.
Well, at least like. I guess theoretically, you might not come out of law school with a mountain of student debt that you can't pay off. Like maybe they're using their savings to pay for law school.
Yeah.
So it's just an investment. It's like it's saving up to do that thing rather than doing it and then figuring out how to pay it later. Mm-hmm. It's kind of an admirable way to go about it.
Yeah. But I thought that was just a great story.
Yeah.
And a good reminder that you're not stuck. We didn't talk about like
the economics of it. Like he probably had some like,
yeah, I mean, he was a he said I was a business person in Dubai, so it's easy to assume that somebody, I mean, Dubai has so much money.
yeah,
You can easily, I mean, you can assume that he probably had a fair amount of savings.
to come
I mean,
over
if
here
you come and
do
you buy a truck and a horse, that's like
yeah,
pretty significant dollars. But I don't think, and yeah, I will say, and even for us, like we were in a really good spot to kind of change direction with our careers. Not everyone is in that, has that opportunity.
yeah,
But that doesn't mean that you're always stuck. I mean, it's the same thing in like relationships. People just, they settle and they just live with it because the thought of going backwards for a bit or having to restart somewhere is so fear inducing.
yeah. There's that like sunk cost fallacy, which just says like the more into a commitment you are, it happens all the time in relationships. It's like, well, I can't get out of this relationship. I've been in it 10 years. Well, what kind of logic is that? You're going to be in it feasibly like 30 more years. And people do that all the time with careers. Like, well, I can't go back and change. I can't not be a dentist. I went to dental school.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, what do you mean? You can do like...
Life is long. It's short, but it's also can be long.
Yeah.
And anyway, as soon as we met him and had heard that story, we're like, we have to share that story.
Yeah. There's that. I mean, I'm really into Seth Godin right now, and he's huge on how impactful fear of failure can be, and how we as a society have just done a terrible job at framing failure. And it's like, if we're gonna strive and if we're gonna like stick our neck out and like do something, we want immediate guarantees that it's gonna be worth the effort. And if we can't get those guarantees, like a lot of people just won't. When really like life is lived in those moments where you're like, I don't really know what's going to happen, but I'll try. Like that's kind of where the best moments in life are. It's like, yeah, we're going to do this. Like worst thing that happens is it doesn't work out. And what's so bad about that? But yeah, I thought that was a really neat story.
Yeah.
All right. What are we talking about today?
We're going to talk about 3 fitness/nutrition misconceptions. Number 1. Do I want to list them all or just start with number 1?
Oh, we'll go down the list.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so this one was, I was reading, so I follow this guy on Instagram. His name's Jordan Syatt. He's got like 1 million followers. And he has a very similar message to us. It's kind of like, keep it basic, keep going. Like weight loss is slow. Basics of lifestyle are going to get you there type thing. I don't think he doesn't do like one-on-one coaching, but his message is great. Anyways, he does a lot of like ask me a question. So I was reading an answer to one the other day, and the question was, why do you say that women won't get bulky lifting weights when all of these CrossFit women are so bulky? And so he had a lot of things to say, like, well, there's genetics and, these women are training a lot, blah, blah, blah. And then he goes into say like, and I don't want to get into like steroid talk here, but he did say something that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And that's like, a lot of a lot of those elite CrossFitters are taking steroids. And to me, I'm like, really? Are we back here? But anyways, it kind of spurred a conversation between me and Meredith about the misconception of women thinking that they're going to get bulky if they start lifting weights.
Yeah, I've had someone say that to my face. Like back when I was running that gym, like I had a member walk, like a prospective member walk up, and it was someone who was new to CrossFit, like maybe like middle-aged female, probably just super toxic relationship with her body and food. And she basically just walked in and started like pointing at people in the gym, like that she wanted to look like. And then to my face was like, and you look great. No, like, no, like nothing against you, but like, that is not what I want. And I was like, are you fucking kidding me right now?
Lady, you couldn't look like me if you tried.
Well, and that's most of the argument, right? And that's not to say that, like, sure, there are people out there who take steroids and performance enhancing drugs. Like, that's not a CrossFit thing. That's a fitness industry thing. Mm-hmm. Like, people go to Globo gyms and do that. There are people on Instagram selling like PT programs that do that because it makes their program easier to sell. It's like people selling supplements do that. Like, it's not a CrossFit thing. At least there's drug testing in CrossFit at the elite level.
I'll just say one thing about that. CrossFitters work incredibly hard.
Yeah.
Like, the people at the top, they don't have jobs. Their job is to train and recover.
There's no balance.
Like, the reason, and then also they have the genetic, like, they're built for it, and then they optimize that potential. That's how you get to the top of the sport now, because it's so competitive.
It's like
saying like that those people are taking steroids, just, it bothers me because I know how hard these girls work.
Mm-hmm.
And saying that they're taking steroids is just, it's, why? You don't know for sure that they're doing it. Like, it takes away from their effort.
Yeah.
And the athletes that they are.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they just take steroids. No, they don't.
Have you ever put or seen a racehorse standing next to a non-racehorse? Have you seen that?
No.
The difference is like jaw-dropping. Why? Because that horse gets worked day in and day out. It does one thing and it trains to run fast. And so it looks like a beefy athlete of an animal compared to a horse whose, one job is to eat grass and like walk around and do trail rides and stuff. It's completely different. That's the difference. Like, these people, they live and breathe and sleep and eat to do one thing, and that's train and exercise and be at the top of the sport.
Like, yeah, there have been some instances of people taking steroids, but to say that the top elites are taking steroids to get there is so annoying.
Yeah.
I remember once someone said, like, oh, someone said that they think you're taking steroids. Mm-hmm. It was at my local gym, and I was like, seriously?
Yeah.
It just takes away from the effort you put in.
I think
you're only good because you cheat. That's basically what you're saying. You're not, it's like, you don't say like, oh, that person's does well on exams because they cheat. They bring in a little cheat book.
Yeah. They put all the answers in their calculator before they show up. That's so stupid.
It's like, no, that person studied their ass off.
Yeah. You don't see people, like, go ask any CrossFit athlete, like top level, like regionals level, semifinal level, games level, when the last time they went out and got hammered was.
Yeah. Or when they got less than 9 hours of sleep, fewer than 9 hours.
Yeah. They don't. Like, their whole life revolves around that, which is great. That's how you do that. That's how you end up looking like that. But like, if you go in the gym and you pick up a barbell, that's not going to happen. And so, like, PED, steroid talk aside, like, there's a lot of science that goes into like resistance training and training to be at the top of any sport, but definitely a strength sport. Like, most people, like, straight up, they can't work hard enough for long enough to ever have results like that. Like, you have to be kind of okay with doing the exact same type of training for years at a time.
Yeah.
And training, like, what most people screw up is they don't try hard enough when they are training. Like, they don't go anywhere near failure on resistance exercises. They do like 5, 6, 7,
Yeah.
Like, if you're not about to pop an eyeball out, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Like, that's like the thing about like running. You want most of your running training, you want most of your aerobic work to be easy. Strength training is the opposite of that.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you need to be going for 1 rep maxes, but it means when you're doing sets of 5, 8, 10, 12, even up to 20 reps, like the last couple of reps, it should be like, oh yeah, this is kind of all I have. Like, maybe I could do 1 or 2 more if I really had to, but this is it. You should need like 90 seconds to 3 minutes to recover between sets. Like, you should not be able to repeat these efforts indefinitely. People don't do that. They don't structure their training in that way. They just go and they walk into a Globo gym and they're like, well, I guess I'm going to do legs today. I'm going to go do 12 different machines, like some amount of reps. I don't know how much weight. Like, there's not the structure, there's not the consistency, and they don't do it for a long enough time.
Yeah, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with exercising for health and moving your body for health.
No.
But assuming that you're going to walk into a gym and instantly grow these ginormous muscles, is a misconception. There are people who want to grow muscle. Like they come into the gym and they're like, I want to look like that.
Yeah.
And you're like, sweet. I love that you like want to get strong. And they're like, how long? 6 months? And you're also like, what?
No. That person has been lifting weights since they were 12. Legit. Like, you can't just walk, like, you're not flipping through a catalog of body types and you're like, all right, I want to look like this person in 6 months.
Yeah.
Not going to happen. Never going to work like that.
I've said this on this podcast before, but I'm always like, form follows function. So when someone says, I want abs, like my response is, okay, when you can do 25 toes to bar unbroken, come see me. When you can do 100 GHD sit-ups in 5 minutes, come see me.
When you can prep and plan all your meals for 6 months straight.
That too.
Come see me.
There's two sides of the coin there.
Yeah.
But it's like, I want that person's ass. It's like, all right, come and see me when you can squat 250 pounds.
And even still, like, you don't have that person's ass.
Yeah.
You have whatever your ass looks like when you train
Exactly.
it. And you better be happy with the way that looks because you're never going to get any better than that.
Yeah. But it's not, it's like that. I think it's people worry that, well, I think there's still a form follows function. Like people will agree with that.
Yes.
But it's like they really underestimate the gravity of the function required to achieve a form.
Yeah. Exactly. There's a reason why elite runners, like genetics aside, all kind of look similar. There's a reason why rock climbers, genetics aside, at the top level, all look similar. Like gymnastics, same. CrossFit at the elite level, same. Like it's what you do shapes the way that you look, or shapes the way that your body can express your genetics. That's it.
Yeah.
But there are some people who, no matter how hard you train, like you're not going to have calf muscles. That's genetics. Abs, exact same thing. Like when I was in like the best shape I've ever been in, you want to know how many abs you could see on me?
0.
4. I only have 4 abs.
I know. It's weird because, yeah, I think people, I want abs. I want your abs. I mean, I see people, I'm like, I want their legs. But the fact of the matter is I could do exactly the same thing that they're doing on a daily basis. I mean, arguably for a while there, we basically were doing the exact same training. And we looked similar type bodies, approximately the same weight. Looking closely, we very different. And that's all genetics.
Yeah. Extremely different.
But I think this fear of getting bulky, for starters, to each their own. I don't really care if you want to be bulky or don't want to be bulky. It's like your decision on what you want your body to look like. But the fact of the matter is, like, most women out there, and honestly men, are not going to get bulky.
No. The problem, though, is that the fear of that look, or the fear of, well, I don't want to lift weights because I don't want my arms to get really big, or I don't want my midsection to get big. That keeps a lot of people out of the gym. That keeps them from doing resistance training when, like, everybody, but especially women, for bone health and aging health concerns, like, need to be doing resistance training. They need to be doing it. And if you do the right amount of it, like if you do it 3 times a week, 3 or 4 times a week, in conjunction with whatever your preferred sport is or aerobic exercise, you're not going to get bulky, but you will be extremely healthy, less prone to injury when you get older, and probably just like feel better in your body. You'll get to eat more because you'll have more muscle mass, even if it's not like a gigantic amount of muscle mass that, you know, you go hulking down the road. Like, that's not what's going to happen. And even if that were to start to happen, there's an easy way to reverse it, and it's just do a little bit less. Do a little bit less.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you always say, changing your body isn't like taking a quick turn on a speedboat. It's like turning a yacht around.
You got to start turning that bitch like early, and you got to hold that wheel because it's going to try to straighten itself out. You went, no, not today.
Yeah. And you're going to know if you're going to know that you're turning around before you've turned around.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same thing with weight gain or weight loss. Like, you're going to know it's happening before it's too late.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I know what you mean.
Ish. I guess if you're in denial, then maybe not.
Yeah. But yeah, that's That's
you don't go, holy Jesus, I've gained 30 pounds.
Oh, I know.
But I guess you do. But that's because of...
The crazy
I don't
thing
know
is,
how
like,
to describe that
so
phenomenon.
I've been doing strength training. I've been doing CrossFit seriously. I mean, because as soon as I stepped in the door to CrossFit gym, I was doing it seriously because that's just how I do things. But I've been doing it since 2012, June 2012. We're coming up on 10 years. Ooh, really soon, actually. I look back at pictures of myself from like 2014, even 2015. And I'm like, where are your muscles? And I thought like 2015, like 2014, 2015, I was like, hell yeah, I'm jacked. But I look back and I'm like, what? Where's the rest of you?
I posted a video the other day of me doing the snatch in 2014, an open workout, and I was like,
oh my God.
I would not be able to fit into those clothes.
No. So it takes a long time. I mean, I think, yeah, just looking back, and I'm not a big person, but I'm fairly like, I guess, muscular for my size. That's 10 years. 10
I think
years.
about like 2015, 2014, when I was getting good at CrossFit, good enough to qualify for the games back then. It's been 7 years since then. And it's not 7 years. I'm speaking for both of us. It's not 7 years of, and I would actually say like we were probably the most muscular we've been in like 2019, 2020 for the two of us.
Yes.
Between then, that's like 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And that's not 4 or 5 years of working out 3 times a week at the Globo gym. That's like, I don't know, what's 5 times 50?
Well, I mean, think
250 days of like working out, double days. So that's 500 workouts per year. So that's like almost 3,000 high intensity, heavy workouts.
Yeah.
And then combined with that, like dialed in nutrition, optimizing recovery, going for a massage, sleeping over 8 hours every night,
Not
keeping
drinking
lights up,
alcohol.
not drinking. I barely have had a drop of alcohol since university.
Yep.
Like that's, and I'm not even that bulky.
No. Well, you look at someone like Brooke, you look at Tia, you look at these girls who are actually like have a ton of muscle mass on their bodies. And it's like that, but even more.
Like no one walking into a CrossFit gym fearing that you're going to get bulky is going to get bulky. It's just not the way it works.
No.
You have to actually try to get bulky. You're not going to just happen to get bulky.
You're not going to go for a sweat and get bulky. Yeah.
Yeah. That's, to me, when I read that, I was like, is that even still a thing?
Oh, it's for sure a thing.
I guess my community is mostly CrossFit based.
Yeah. Where there's more of an understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or our followers or whoever, they come to us. So I'm only exposed to people who know better. No offense. But I read that. I'm like, oh my goodness. Like, really? Are we not past this?
Oh, sometimes I start working with people who are from like sort of the bodybuilding, like non-CrossFit realm. And they say stuff. I'm like, sweet Jesus, you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. But yeah, that kind of misinformation is like really perpetuated still.
Yeah.
Both online and then also in gym and like in-person communities. So that one feeds nicely into number 2, which is cardio is the best way to manage your body composition and lose fat, which is, again, another one that I hear all the time from people. What type of cardio is best for losing fat? I'm like, the weightlifting kind. And that's, I don't know where this one comes from. I think because you look at endurance athletes and you look at runners and they're quite lean usually. Obviously don't carry around a lot of body fat, but also like when you think about it, cardio machines and even more recently wearable devices, Garmin's, Whoops, Fitbits, that kind of thing, they give you like calories per hour when you do cardio. So there's this like understood predictable rate of calorie use, calorie burn during training, even though there's a huge amount of error on that. It does give people the idea like if I'm doing cardio, then I'm actively burning calories, which yes, but that's the same for any kind of exercise. So I think that's where it comes from. Maybe you sweat more when you do it. Maybe it's outside, so you're sweating more.
I think people, I mean, this is a separate misconception, but it might tie in. The more you sweat, the harder you're working, or sweat correlates with more calories.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no. And also, yeah, I think it kind of goes into the whole like calories in versus calories out. So I think it is that thing where like you see the number of calories you're burning.
Yeah, where like you can't really do that when you're
I mean, if you wear a Whoop or a
squatting.
Fitbit or whatever watch you're wearing, Garmin, and you squat 5x5, you're not going to burn that many more calories than you do just walking around.
It's going to be like you burned 56 calories.
I know. So instead of doing 30 minutes of cardio where you burn 350 calories.
I mean, I don't know if you might burn 350 calories in 30 minutes of cardio.
I don't even know how many calories I burn. My Garmin tells me how many calories, but I don't really believe it or look at it because it's not based on me necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
It's no indication of my fitness or like what I'm going to eat that day.
Yeah.
But I think it for some people, they see that number, like you said, and it's like, oh, I'm burning calories. If I burn more calories, that means I lose fat.
Yeah. Which, okay, maybe not. But then when you...
There is something to that.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to energy balance, but also people run the risk of offsetting that quite easily after they do a hard cardio workout and they read on their watch, oh, I've burned 800 calories, when in reality you burn more like maybe 480, but you eat as if you've burned 800, and so there goes your calorie balance from exercise. It's just negated. That happens. It's pretty frequent.
I mean, we've done posts on why you don't lose weight doing CrossFit.
Yeah, because it jacks your hunger up.
It's really a very, very small percentage of your day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, you exercise for 15 minutes, like out of 16 hours of being awake. 15 minutes, sometimes not even 15. You stand around, you warm up, you do your practice lifts, you do a 5x5 or 2x2 front squats, and then you do a workout for 7 minutes. Like, that's hardly anything.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of your entire day, which you're sitting on your ass at work, stressed to the gills.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you think that's going to make a difference? No, not really. Or even like a 20-minute run. Like, yes, I love that you're working out, but like, it's not that big of a drop in the bucket.
What's important to say is there's still a lot of value in doing that from like a health and a body perspective, and it can change your body in really good ways, but it doesn't really impact nutrition that much.
Or calorie expenditure.
Yeah. And that's the catch. Like if someone has a sedentary job, like they sit most of the day and then they do a 1 hour CrossFit class, they're still sedentary.
Mm-hmm.
Like that doesn't change anything.
But I think that the answer to that, or the misconception there, is not accounting for body composition.
You mean lean muscle mass?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so before we get into the muscle mass, which I think is the biggest part of the conversation, like in order to get to muscle mass, again, we go back to the getting bulky strength training thing. When you compare strength training to like resistance exercises to like running or cardio, the post-exercise oxygen consumption, that's like essentially what your air quotes metabolism is doing after you exercise. It's way more active after you do strength training. So your oxygen consumption's way up. You're going to be burning more calories at rest. You're going to be burning through more fat at rest than you would if you did a long, slow, steady, like endurance piece. And that kind of goes to just the cost of building muscle and how metabolically active lean body mass is compared to fat mass. So that's really like when we talk about cardio for body composition and also fat loss, like a person who has more lean mass on their body because they do resistance training is going to have a much easier time burning fat than someone who has a lower fat, like lower lean body mass just at rest. Person with the higher lean mass is going to burn more calories. So they've got a larger path to walk with regards to energy intake. Runners, and especially people who run to change their body, because there's obviously, when we say runners, that's probably the most popular like fitness activity in the world, I think. Do you think that's right?
I think you could just say cardio.
Yeah. Running's just really accessible, so a lot of people do it. It's free. You buy shoes, you go out and run. It's great. I love running. But a lot of people do it specifically to change the way that their body looks. And it does really increase hunger quite a lot. When you're restricting your calories at all while you do it, it tends to jack up cortisol quite a bit. And so that's going to have a negative impact on lean body mass. And then the more you run, the more your body kind of assesses itself. And it's like, well, I'm toting around all this muscle that I don't need to have on my frame. So then it becomes even more catabolic. And it's like, let's get rid of some muscle because then we'll be lighter, right? Because your body is sort of, when you look at like when you consider your energy balance, like your energy potential as a human, muscle's metabolically active. Like fat's not. You can store fat, but your body and your brain really don't have any idea how much fat you have on your body. It's not doing math. Like, well, we have, 30 pounds of fat mass. That means we have this many stored like kilocalories of energy, but it is more aware of how much muscle you have on your body because it's metabolically there. It's contributing to the system in an active way. So like runners start to sort of get rid of muscle. And so you actually sometimes see people who visually start to look kind of like worse as they run. Like they become kind of I wish there was a better phrase to use, but skinny fat sort of comes to mind where like, yeah, you're getting smaller, but like not visually any leaner because lean body, like at best, lean body mass and total body mass are declining at the same rate. So you're just coming like a smaller version.
I want to, and I don't like commenting on people's body, but to paint the picture, it's like you take a 5,000 meter runner from the Olympics and you compare that against like a decathlete.
Yeah.
So it's like they're both really lean, probably close to the same, if not less body fat on the decathlete. But the decathlete's bigger because they have more muscle.
Yeah.
And they're probably leaner because they have more muscle.
Yeah. And it kind of like a caveat to that, people who just want to lose weight to reduce their body fat percentage. Like they're like, I want to lose weight so that I'm 10% body fat. If that's the approach and it's someone who's not already like has a high training age or does any amount of resistance training, like, yeah, you know what? You can do that. But like, you're going to look extremely gaunt when you get there because you're not going to retain a ton of muscle mass while you drop body. You're going to lose muscle mass. Like, yeah, you're going to lose body fat too. Whereas if the same person were to say, I want to be 10% body fat, but I want to gain muscle mass to do that, that's way easier.
Also, the first person who just wants to lose weight to be 10% body fat is not going to be able to eat very much food at all.
Oh, it's a miserable experience.
It would be awful.
Yeah.
Whereas the person trying to gain muscle to lose fat actually can continue to eat and fuel their body.
Yeah. Assuming that they're not doing only running as their primary mode of exercise. Like that requires a shift in training methodology. But I think that's the kind of
there is definitely a place for cardio. Like people are like, well, what's the best exercise? Like all of it.
Oh, I know. Cause like you still have your heart health to be concerned about. Like you do want to elevate your heart rate a number, like 30 minutes a few times a week. And that's cardio. But there's this like, again, internet and just people in general, they love to get in their camps and they love to fight. There's this whole thing like, well, you can't do weight training because weight training impacts cardio performance. We can't do cardio because cardio impacts weight training. Well, they've actually figured out that they don't really impact each other that much at all, especially if you do them on separate days or in separate sessions during the week. And a lot of times weightlifters will actually get better when they start doing cardio because they don't have such a hard time in like long sets. And then again, it kind of goes to just like general and overall health, which is important.
Like zone 2.
I hate when people say zone 2.
Okay, I honestly, I'm saying that as a question because I'm not really too familiar with the zones.
Yeah, the heart rate zones?
No, because I don't train like that and I never have.
Well, it's weird because some, like Peloton has their specific brand of it. But sometimes you'll see like zone 1 through 4, but then sometimes you see zone 1 through 5. But anyways, all zone 2 means is a certain percentage of your 1 rep max heart rate. It's a certain percentage of your max heart rate. And when you're in that zone, it's I guess you're burning, it's more of a fat burning type situation. Long, slow, steady. It's base building. But I think just people have a misconception of how it works.
So cardio is not best for fat loss.
No,
even
it's
though
not.
You burn more calories per minute.
Well, you don't even. You burn more calories per minute while you're looking at it.
While you're doing it.
But across the day, questionable.
Yeah.
I think it gets into, there's that whole like the swimmer's body fallacy, which James Smith just talked about on a little video that he did, which is essentially, you have a person who they look at a weightlifter and they say, well, I don't want to look like that person. And then they look at a endurance runner and they say, well, I don't look like that person. And then they look at a swimmer and they think, well, that swimmer has a really nice body. I want to look like that person. So they start swimming. And then they swim for a year, 2 years to get out of the pool, towel themselves off. They look in the mirror and they think, well, I don't look anything like that person. And I've been doing this for a year or 2 years. What gives? And it's because people, they fail to appreciate the fact that perhaps the swimmer doesn't look the way that he does because he swims. He swims because he looks the way he does. There's a genetic predisposition to look and perform a certain way, and that can inform sport choice, especially at an elite level.
It's both.
Yeah. I mean, there's form follows function, but also there are some athletes who are just born to be the athletes that they are.
It's this is going to be an extreme example, but I think it paints the picture. Take a basketball player.
Yeah.
You don't start, and this is actually to some degree, I mean, there's varying percentages of factors, like how much a factor plays into it. Like obviously a swimmer looks a certain way because he swims more than a basketball player is tall because they play basketball. But it is similar to say well, I'm going to play basketball because I want to be taller.
Yeah.
It's well, you might
get better at basketball. Your athleticism might improve, but you're not going to get any taller.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might get arm muscles or however you'd like to describe basketball players. You might grow calves because they jump a lot.
Yeah.
But you're never going to look like that because you're not, for starters, you haven't been doing it for 25 years, but you also, the person at the top is at the top partially because they've been doing it for so long, but also because they're genetically predisposed. Yeah.
I mean, you can make the same argument that, someone does not become hyper analytical with a high attention to detail because they are a lawyer. They are a lawyer because they have a high attention to detail and are hypercritical, hyper analytical.
Mm-hmm.
It's like that. It's exactly like that. So it makes chasing body types by doing specific types of exercise kind of a ridiculous concept, especially as a adult.
There's always going to be that nature versus nurture argument, but I think we can all agree that there's both.
Yep.
And if you only have one or even both to only a certain degree, that doesn't mean you're going to be that person, look like that person, or perform to that person's level.
Yeah. Yep. That's good. What's number 3?
Number 3 is, and this is it flows nicely, losing fat and burning fat are not the same thing.
Yes. The difference between fat burning and fat loss. And this one's this is the one that you see come up a lot. And I guess it does kind of go into that zone 2 kind of fat burning zone. People think if they do fat burning zone exercise that they're going to lose fat faster. And that could not be further from the truth. So that in the most simple terms, fat burning simply describes what substrate your body is using to create energy. And when you're at very low intensity, your body is going to use stored fat because it's slow, it's readily available. It gets to save your glycogen and your stored glucose for moments when you're and you need to run, that's that evolutionary mechanism. You use the slow energy source when you're at lower intensity. So you preserve your fast acting for moments when you need fast acting energy. But doing fat burning exercise, I mean, walking around the neighborhood is a fat burning exercise. Sleeping is a fat burning doing dishes, all of that stuff burns fat. That's what your body does at those intensities. It doesn't mean that fat is your preferred energy source. It's not. In fact, the fact that your body is using fat at those low intensities is proof that fat is not your preferred energy source. Carbs are, which is why your body works so hard to preserve them. when your heart rate gets above a certain intensity, when you're doing exercise, like for the most part between, I guess not the super fast stuff. So we'll call it 30, like faster than 30 seconds is going to be like ATP and creatine.
Fewer than like weightlifting.
Yeah. Weightlifting, like super fast.
Anything like
sprints.
anaerobic.
Yeah.
Like 100-meter sprint.
Yes. Yeah.
Is usually the
But even that starts to become a little bit glycolytic.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
But when you...
like doing a muscle up.
Yeah. Not under any fatigue. Yeah. A box jump.
Mm-hmm.
A squat. Those are not using... That's stored energy. That's ATP. When you start working in longer durations, but not super long, like 30 seconds to, let's call it 90 minutes, carbohydrates, stored carbs are the preferred energy source. And usually that's because your heart rate elevates and your respiratory rate increases, and carbs just work a little faster. Like it takes half as much time to mobilize stored carbohydrates and get that going to produce ATP than it does to mobilize triglycerides and stored fat to get that going in oxidation. It's literally half the time, which is why your body likes to use those. As far as fat loss goes, what you're doing for exercise, whether you're in fat burning zone or you're doing glycolytic carb burning exercise, is like pretty much completely irrelevant, because fat loss has nothing to do with substrate utilization and everything to do with energy balance. So you could be on the Stairmaster doing zone 2 for 4 hours a day, just burning fat. But if you're eating more than you're burning, you're not going to lose any fat. You can do all the fat burning exercise in the world, but it's not going to affect your body fat stores if you're still over consuming anything. Protein, carbs, fat, it doesn't matter what you're eating. When we talk about like when you want to lose fat, now you need to be oxidizing fat, but also like carbohydrates and just using energy faster than you have fat deposition occurring. So faster than you're storing fat. Burn more than you store. But just because you're burning carbohydrates because you're doing higher intensity exercise doesn't mean you're not also...
Like you could burn all carbs, primarily carbs, and lose fat.
Yeah, because remember, what happens after you exercise? Your body continues to require oxygen to recover metabolically. And when you're at rest, remember this was the post-exercise oxygen consumption. Do you think your body requires carbohydrates to do that? No, it requires fat. So you literally are burning fat at rest after doing high intensity exercise, whether it's weightlifting, CrossFit, running, doesn't matter. You like that is occurring to some degree, and you're burning fat. There's some like nuance with the extent to which we raise insulin. Like people who eat a high fat diet, let's say keto, for example, like actual keto, not
like you are in ketosis.
Yeah, you're eating 70% fats, like 5% carbohydrates and 25% protein, like legit keto. When you eat, like your blood sugar, your insulin is not going to elevate like it does on a like moderate or high carbohydrate diet. And some people say like, well, when you do that, then your body doesn't store fat, doesn't store what you're eating to the same, like at the same readiness that it would if you're eating carbohydrates, and your insulin is up, right? Because insulin is a storage hormone. And that's true, but they've kind of figured out that the difference in stored energy is only it's less than 5%. So you're still storing because your body has to store energy. Like that's the reason why that's the reason why you're alive, is because you have stored energy, whether it's fats like triglycerides, whether it's carbohydrates like glycogen in your liver and your muscles, like you're storing energy somewhere. So it doesn't really like have a big impact. The obvious caveat is like people who have diabetes.
Okay, question for you. I think this answers the question. I don't know if this will be a question. This kind of answers the question of like why we shouldn't be afraid of carbs. Carbs don't make us.
Okay, so what's the question?
So where does this obsession of eating fat and burning fat and this fear of carbs come from?
I think it's misinformation from, or it's inappropriately represented information from
Gary Taubes.
Well, Gary, yeah, like that whole group, they're trying to sell books, but also like we've seen iterations of this from like from government, from Health Canada, from the USDA. We've seen like I think what's going on is people are aware that there's a problem. Like everyone can look around them and see like shit, we have a problem with obesity. And I don't like this is not to say that like skinny normative, like you have to be skinny to be healthy and successful. Like that's not what I'm saying here. I mean, the rates of like chronic disease caused by obesity, that is a problem. People can look around and see it. And the reality is it's like it's not fat that's the problem. It's not carbs. It's the combination. But like to say to people, yeah, like the problem is hyper palatable, easy to consume, ultra processed foods that tend to contain like low protein, high carbs, high fat, high sugar, high salt, low water content, like concentrated calories and tertiary food processing. Like that is the problem.
I have a client who has he's fearful of carbs making him fat. He's a really lean person. Like he'll wake up so hungry and he will eat beans or like eggs. Something that's like, I mean, beans have carbs, but they're like he will not eat a bowl of cereal.
Because he's afraid that the carbs are going to make him fat. Well, I mean, they've done like, so if you want to single out carbohydrates, and there's been a lot of studies on this, both in animal models. Like, you know, animal models get a lot of flack for not being like totally representative, and they're not all of the time. But as far as feeding studies go, they're pretty good. And like rats are they have especially similar palates to human beings. I think the exception is they don't really like salt. So if you salt something, a rat's not going to eat it, but that's okay. You just don't salt their food. It's no problem. In free feeding studies in rats, and the good thing about rats and mice, but especially rats with feeding studies, is you can treat such a large population. I mean, you can work with thousands of rats. So you end up with this super like statistically significant body of data. And they have yet to replicate obesity in rats in free feeding situations where they feed them either carbohydrates or fat.
It's the combination that does it.
Yeah, and that's
calories.
Yeah. So when you combine the two, specifically like sugar and fat, so think kind of like donut, but even like French fries kind of fall into this. When you create what scientists call like the cafeteria diet, which is just like kind of a term used to describe highly processed, like usually secondary or tertiary food processing, combination of fats and carbohydrates engineered in a way to promote overeating. When you give rats that in a free feeding setting, then you see obesity skyrocket. You see body fat mass go up, body weight goes up. And even though those studies are in smaller groups than humans, you see the same thing. And they have all kinds of ways of controlling the study in both like controlled feeding studies. So when people are in actual clinics, and then also like at home, like observational kind of studies. And they see the same thing. When you control for the type of macronutrients, so you say, okay, we're going to have this group eat predominantly carbohydrates only, not carbohydrates and fat. I'm talking like potatoes. And we're going to have this group free feed on, any combination of food they like. You see body fat mass and obesity start to go up in the free feeding standard Western eaters. But you give someone like free reign, eat as many potatoes and as many different combinations as you want, as long as it's not French fries and like whipped up with butter and cream, and body fat mass goes down. And that's people who are eating like 400, 600, 800 grams of carbohydrates a day because that's all they have access to. So you can't sit back and say carbs are the problem, because they're not. And we've studied that. It's the combination. It's the diet pattern that becomes the problem. It's what happens when you process the carbohydrate. So you remove water content, you concentrate the calories into a more dense form, and then you deep fry it and cover it in salt.
Mm-hmm. It's funny. I'll have people, or I can even speak from my own experience, like from carb loading. A carb load is approximately 30% more calories than you eat on a regular basis. So let's say if you're eating 2,000 calories on a daily basis, a carb load, you're looking at around 3,000 calories, primarily carbs. You're looking at like 500 to 550 grams of carbs, and then your fat goes down. You're looking for like a 70-15-15 breakdown: carbs, protein, fat. So
you know that meme with the woman with doing the math?
Yeah.
That's me right now.
Yeah. So anyways, my point is carb loading is hard, and it's not because of the fact that you're eating 3,000 calories. I can eat 3,000 calories in 2 meals if I go to Earl's and order a salad and a chicken, and then later on in the day I have a chicken sandwich with french fries. I can easily hit 3,000 calories and a drink.
Yep.
Getting that 550 grams of carbs in requires, I wake up in the morning and I am intentional about when to eat carbs, and like I have to start immediately.
Like your job is eating
throughout the whole day. And some of those carbs are liquid carbs, drinking, but it is hard. And it's not the carbs the hardest part is eating carbs without fat.
Yeah.
And even finding carbs without fat is difficult. Like you can go and you can be like, okay, I'm going to order a rice dish because there's lots of rice. And then you're like, shoot, I can't have sauce with this. Or even protein, like you end up overeating protein by accident. It's not the carbs that are being over, like those aren't where the calories are coming from.
Yeah.
But it's crazy because I have clients where I'm like, okay, you're going to eat 500 grams carbs. And they're like, what?
Oh my God.
Are you sure? Like, and even it's like, how did that go? And it's like, well, it took a lot. Like I was kind of fearful. It kind of bothered me mentally to eat that many carbs, like carbs. Like, yeah, but like just last weekend, you ate 3,000 calories. And there's nothing wrong with this. You ate 3,000 calories because you went to McDonald's and then you went out and had 800 calories worth of alcohol. But it's carbs that get the bad rap.
Yeah.
When really, like, carbs are your best friend. It's your body's preferred source of energy. You feel amazing when you eat carbs.
Yeah. And it's not,
I love when people say, I feel sluggish.
I feel sluggish when I eat carbs.
That is your brain thinking something completely wrong.
You want to feel bad when you eat carbs because you want to validate the fact that you've avoided carbs for so many years of your life. That's what it is.
Usually I just say, you're going to feel amazing. And they're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because that's enough to be like, but it's crazy. Like this guy who's afraid of carbs, and like we're working on it. I'm very sensitive to how nutrition beliefs can be just so deeply ingrained. But it doesn't matter how many studies I send him or like research or reviews or posts or anything to kind of justify like carb. Like I would say, like, look at this person, look at how skinny they are, and they're eating 700 grams of fat or carbs. It's like, what? How? Because
you should just have them eat like, okay, so we're doing a meal plan.
It's not that easy.
We're doing a meal plan, and for the next 3 days, you get to eat oatmeal and potatoes and fruit, and that's it.
Well, that would be a little insensitive considering his.
Yeah, it's true.
It's difficult. It's difficult to snap people out of those long-held beliefs. Like it really is.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy. But I thought this was a productive podcast. You explained everything really well.
Thanks. Yeah, I think we're lucky because I do think we put out so much information online that when people do sign up, they kind of are aware of some of this information already. You know, the exception is referrals. We've already talked about how challenging that can be.
Bucking Broncos.
But yeah, I mean, like honestly, I think there's a number of people out in the online space who are doing the Lord's work and trying to like normalize some of this stuff and bring science and evidence and help people like, okay, yeah, I can eat carbs, I can do weight training, and I'm not going to get big and bulky, and like I don't have to spend 3 hours a day on a Stairmaster to burn fat. Like I can just eat appropriately, and that will, that will help me lose fat. It's all things in moderation. I think before the internet was around, and it's our tendency to get into our camps and yell on the internet. But I think the diet industry has been doing that for years. And it's like, I think it's because it's so difficult. It's like, hey, we want people to control their calories. So why don't we just tell them that carbs are bad? Because if we tell them carbs are bad, then they're not going to eat donuts, when really like carbs are fine. But yeah, donuts in large quantities are going to be a problem. Or like pizza. Like, well, I can't have pizza because I don't eat carbs. Well, I mean, like, what if you had some fruit?
Got a bad rap.
I know. So I think there's a middle ground here. There's a middle ground where carbs are not bad. Pizza and donuts should be consumed in moderation. Fats are obviously not your body's preferred like energy source in high intensity exercises, but still good to keep in the diet because like fats do important things in the body too. Like you don't want to go high carb, low fat necessarily, but like the answer is like take the moderate approach and do the moderate approach for a long period of time and resist the urge to change up what you're doing, the moderate approach, if you don't see results in the first month.
Yeah. I think to answer, if somebody is fearful of carbs, my answer to get over that fear is to eat carbs and control for calories for a period of time and realize nothing bad happens. Nothing changes. If anything, you're just going to feel better.
You'll sleep better.
You can read research all day long. You can. It's not going to change people.
No.
It's the same thing as like exercise is good for you for all these reasons. It's not like that doesn't click in people's brains. You need to do it and be like, oh, right, it's okay. Even people who are under eating, eating more is going to make me fat. Well, can we try it and see what happens? Most of the time, like, what do? They lean out and they feel amazing.
Yeah.
Depending on the person. But what's interesting, these people who have these misconceptions around food and macros, carbs specifically, one of the best things that I have found that helps a person is not necessarily spitting out research or saying like, oh, I have this person who eats 500 grams of carbs and look, they're skinny or they don't have very much fat on them. But telling the person like, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be okay. Like eating an apple is okay. That seems to hit people a lot better and like sinks in more than like regurgitating research.
Well, this.
Well, what about this person on the, they say that carbs are bad. Well, like I think the only real way to actually is gain trust from somebody and then slowly say like, let's try this. Let's go up 10 grams of carbs and see how that feels. Yeah. Oh, nothing's bad's happening. Okay, let's go up a little bit more. It's going to be okay. That sort of thing.
Yeah.
So hopefully this has helped a little bit if you are a person there who has some
carb phobia
or just like is worried about getting bulky or any of the following things that we discussed.
Muscle phobia. Yep. Cool. Thanks for wrapping that one up, Alex.
Welcome.
Yeah. Thanks for listening again. And if you like this episode, share it. We love when you do that. And subscribe to the show. Send it to your friends who want to do cardio all day and not eat carbs. Thank you. Talk to you soon.